Hello and welcome to Football Around the Clock. We have all four of our supporters today. So we have Charles,
Hey, how you doing?
Ray,
What's up?
me, David, and of course our host, Derek.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for the intro, David. Like David said, welcome to tonight's edition of Football Around the Clock. We're doing it Saturday night because tomorrow is Easter, and we just want to catch up on all the Champions League action that happened this past week, and also the league action. So let's jump straight into it and get into the Champions League action. Let's just talk about the game of games that just boggled everybody's mind. That was Tottenham versus Man City, with Tottenham pulling off practically the impossible, and beating a Man City that everybody thinks is a Barcelona type of team, almost unbeatable. But then Pep argues that VAR is really boring to talk about, or really effing boring to talk about. But it's obviously a subject that we should bring up in this conversation about this game. I just want to go around first, get thoughts and impressions on the game. Starting out with David, your impressions about the game.
I was blown away. I was watching it with a friend, and when I was talking to him about it, like we'd stop and talk for a moment. The next thing I noticed, there'd be a highlight, and I'd be like, "Oh, look at that highlight happening!" And I'm like, "Wait a second, that's not a highlight. That's another goal." That's how many goals were happening in the first couple minutes. So it was just goal after goal after goal, and I'm going to do a quick contrast. So I think we're going around the clock. I should be short, so I apologize. But a quick contrast with today's game. I think a lot of the same things happened actually, but Tottenham just got the lucky bounce. They got the right touches, and things went in. Man City's vulnerabilities were shown for sure, but Tottenham also got very lucky. The Llorente goal, the fact that Kun Aguero was like a half a millimeter offsides, they were very lucky. But what a game! You still gotta. Everyone still will say this. No matter how lucky Tottenham got, they still did it. So congratulations. No matter how unlucky Man City was, maybe there's still something that needs to be changed.
Yeah, I just want to second what David said, that I think in a competition like this, the Champions League, when you reach, the later levels, the quarters and semis, that there's a lot of fortune and luck that goes into determining the slim margins of victory, and I think that's what we saw in the chaos that we witnessed in Man City versus Tottenham. And I think Tottenham was very fortunate in some situations, but they executed and did what they had to do. And just an amazing, entertaining game effort by both teams. And congrats to Tottenham for pulling through and upsetting Man City.
Yeah, I thought it was a wild game. I agree with you guys, and it's interesting me watching Guardiola coach over the last several years, from Barcelona to Bayern Munich, now Man City. Same weaknesses. His system that he implements does not play defense. His defense is possession ball, and I mean, when you got 2 goals scored against you early in the game, and then end up being 4-3 final, that tells you something. And he has the players, he has the ability. He just needs to learn how to implement some kind of defense to be able to win these close games. Same thing happened when he was in Germany. Getting to the Champions League, got to the semifinals, and it was the defense that let him down, and it was the defense that let him down again against Tottenham. Tottenham, I'm not taking away anything from them. They played fantastic ball, And I think they were up for it. I mean, they were really up for it. They wanted this, and they weren't scared of Man City, probably because they play them constantly, as they did today again. So they weren't scared of them. They came out and played their kind of a game, and they really had nothing to lose. They knew they were the underdogs, and wow, it paid off for them. I thought it was a great game to watch.
Yeah, I think everybody would agree that, especially within the first 25 minutes of the game, that it was probably the most craziest Champions League game we've seen in a very, very long time. I just want to breeze over the stats real fast, as Charles mentioned Pep's style with focusing on offense. So Man City had total of 20 shots, with 8 being on target, and that made only a 40% shot accuracy,
Now,
compared to the 70% for Tottenham.
Was that the first 25 minutes, or was that the whole game?
The whole game.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
Derek.
then you go to the defensive stats, and Tottenham has a 62.5% tackles won throughout the whole game, with only completing 16 tackles, and with 10 interceptions. So obviously Tottenham was playing the defense of the game, toward like almost the whole game, and then Man City had 65 or 66% of the possession, but it shows you that it kind of upholds the argument that defense wins championships a little bit.
No, I agree with you on that. And, Raymond and I, we talked earlier in the week about this, and because I asked the question, why can't Guardiola, why can he not win a Champions League without Messi? We talked about that. And basically, I still think, and Raymond agreed with me, that Guardiola is one of the best coaches in football right now, and maybe the best coach. But we also realize there is no perfect system. Every system has some kind of a flaw. And until he figures out how to tweak his system to be a little more on the defensive side, I think we might see this more often from him, because I think other teams have advanced since his days coaching Barcelona, and they kind of know how to play against that possession style, because a lot of teams are playing it now. And so that might be a little detriment to his system. David?
Yeah, so two things. First of all, I think that if you look at the stats that you showed, 40% is actually really high for a team for shots on target to convert. Like if you're a striker, that's very much on the high range. But I guess what I'm emphasizing there is that both teams performed out of their minds. And so 4 goals in a game, that's fantastic. There were defensive breakdowns for sure, but offensively they performed out of their minds.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think that you're never going to get that change from Guardiola, right? It's almost the same thing as what's going on with Chelsea right now. Both of those coaches, Sarri and Guardiola, are incredibly idealistic, and both teams know that. They know that both those coaches are idealistic. They're not going to get a change. Guardiola might be able to tweak his systems a little better, but he's not going to say, let's sit back or anything. He's just going to say, let's play in a way that somehow mitigates the defensive frailties. So I just, once again, I don't know, that game was insane. Like, for example, the Laporte era that turned into, I think, Son's second goal, and then the deflection off Rose that gave Bernardo Silva his goal. Like, those were things that, of course, they can happen in any other game, but, that it was just an addition. Just added up and added up. Any little thing could turn into a goal. You never knew what would happen. So I think that shows how incredible all the professional teams are. If it was a less professional team, those, there would have been 8 goals in there. Right. And then also it shows that kind of like the luck you need, the fine margins just to get over. So I agree 100% with Ray on that there's just so many fine margins in football. And I guess exactly what you're saying also, Charles, that maybe sometimes some systems will work better than others, and maybe you have to adapt to the things, but the fine margins will make it so even systems that maybe aren't perfect, they will work sometimes, and then systems that may be really close to perfect or the best coach in the world won't work against a team that's not scared of you and has luck on their side.
No, yeah,
Right.
that's for sure.
Yeah, and my final point, going off of what we've been talking about, particular with this leg, I don't know, I don't look at it as like a big picture thing, as a failure of Pep's system. I think, like we had mentioned, I think he's the greatest coach in the football world right now. Everywhere he's been, he's elevated that club to levels that they've never experienced. Even with Bayern, even though they didn't win a Champions League, they went to 3 straight semis and just crushed things domestically. That's something. Even though they've been dominant in their history, they broke all sorts of records there, and then now with Man City. And so I don't know. I think a manager can only do so much, and what it comes down to is execution by players. And as we mentioned, you had a Sergio Aguero missed PK in the first leg, or saved PK.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Laporte's pass back to Son for that second goal, and then the Aguero offside by inches on the what would have been the game winner. And so if one of those go right, we're not having this discussion at all. And all those things weren't decided by Pep. There were poor execution by their players, and so just reiterating the fine margins when it comes to this level, and I'm sure Man City will be back as long as Pep is there.
No, I agree, and I agree with you 100%. I do think he's probably the best coach in the world right now for this generation of coaches and clubs. It just sometimes you just kind of, come on, you just got to get over that edge. But yeah, I agree with you. Little fine margins, and you never know what's going to happen. Little mistakes here, little mistakes there, and they're a fun team to watch though, and I love watching Man City, and they'll be back. They will be back.
Yep, for sure. So moving quickly through Champions League, on that same day we had Liverpool beat Porto 4-1. It's kind of expected. And then also, day before actually, we skipped over Tuesday. Barcelona beat Manchester United 3-0. And then the other upset, Ajax beating Juve 2-1. So I'm just want to go around the clock here, get everybody's opinion, thoughts, impressions, whatever on Ajax. Starting with you, David.
What a game. When you were saying the intro and you were saying the craziest game of the week, I was like, this could actually be applied to both games. I know that Juve kind of has not looked themselves. In fact, they haven't even been able to put away their domestic league, but they're still supposedly miles above Ajax. They have way more financial firepower, and this was entirely unexpected. After beating Real Madrid, who for sure was on the downturn, but probably shouldn't have lost to Ajax, you thought that Ajax could do anything, but you didn't really believe it in your heart. And now it's incredible. What a game. I think my biggest impression and takeaway from that is that they have two already world-class players in De Ligt and De Jong, and that's just something that you normally don't get from teams like Ajax. So they have all the other pieces around them, which is what makes them dangerous, but they have two world-class players already that are just pulling strings and doing magic. So that was a great game, and I'm sorry, Juve, but you should have done better. You should have won. That was your failing as much as it was Ajax's success.
Yeah, I agree, and Ajax is a big story, and like you said, tons of talent, and they're young, and usually young teams kind of fail a little bit at the big stages against a powerful team like Juve because of the inexperience, but like you were mentioning, David, with Leggett and Young, and you got Van de Beek. They're not scared of anybody. Go ahead.
Even Blind, who played for Man U and now is in Ajax, like he really helped out. Sorry, keep going.
No. I agree. And the thing that really gets me about this club, they beat Bayern, one out of the two games in the group stage. They knocked off Real Madrid. Now they knocked off Juventus. For being a very young team, they didn't look scared of anybody, no matter, the mighty Real Madrid, who's won, 4 out of the last 5 Champions Leagues and whatever. They went into there like, you're nothing to us. We can play with you. We're not going to sit back and play defense. We're going to play our style of game. And it worked for them. And I'm very interested to see. I think they play Tottenham in the semifinals. So we'll see how that goes. But awesome game, and disappointing for Juve. Certain players didn't show up. David, you and I talked about this off air. Dybala, again, where was he? He's non-existent in this game, and this is a game where you're supposed to step up, especially for a guy that's that talented, big name in the game, big contract, and he was non-existent again.
Yeah. So to start off, I just want to make a quick observation. I think about Ajax overall in this Champions League, specifically with if you look at their first 2 legs that they played in both of these, in both the round of 16 and the quarterfinals, they lose 2-1 to Real Madrid at home, and then they lost 1-0 to Juventus at home. And so I think it's kind of interesting at home. They're playing with like a tight, with a don't want to lose type mentality. But then when they go to the road, at the Bernabeu, at Real Madrid, and then at Juve, I think they really embrace the underdog type mentality, and that brings out their free flowing style, attacking play that punished both Real Madrid and Juve, and is why Ajax is going to the semis now. And so I think that's I don't know, something maybe they should do at home against Tottenham. We'll see, but and then watching, but specifically with this game against Juve, like it's not like they were parking the bus and they were held on for dear life to upset a big club. They had the more chances. They had the more dangerous threats. They were taking the game to Juve. They looked like the powerhouse team compared to Juve. And so they're young. They don't know any better. They have all sorts of confidence. And so going into the semis against Tottenham, it'll change a little bit because they're going to be in Tottenham for the first leg this time, and then they'll be at home for the second leg. And so we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, what a great story, this Champions League for Ajax and what they've been able to accomplish. And real quick, just, on Juve again, I think a little similar with Real Madrid with Ronaldo there, relying a lot on him. Juve's known for their defense, and they've been under all sorts of fire and did not look just completely unorganized defensively. And quite, just to reiterate what you guys said, quite disappointing considering the financial and talent that they have on that team. You would expect them to go pretty far, but props again to Ajax.
Yeah, just going real quick over the stats of the game real fast too. Off the comment that Ray made about Ajax looking like equal competition to Juve. So possession was 51% to Juve, 49 to Ajax. So that tells you right there that they can keep up with the big boys, and they can definitely deal some damage. But it's also interesting that Ray mentioned that they don't do very well at home, which is really odd, because most teams do really well at home and then not well away. And also, I guess looking to the future, you can say Ronaldo may have a curse on him of moving to future clubs and clubs relying on him. But yeah,
Two
go ahead,
quick
David.
points. There was a point in the second half when Ajax took control of the game and they just had possession and they were attacking Juve, and I couldn't believe it. That shouldn't have happened. It should have been them basically counterattacking the whole time, and they it wasn't the whole second half, but it was just a good chunk of the second half where Juve was under fire, and I almost I was so very confused because that was not something that should have happened based on the teams, based on everything.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm blaming Juve partially because they shouldn't have. No matter how good Ajax was, Juve was the one that had to come out and put the pressure on Ajax. And then in the second half to come out and be that disappointing for large chunks of it, that just rattled me. And so the second point was that Ronaldo after the game, I think he said some disparaging things to his teammates, and I thought it was kind of funny because it was kind of the whole season has been, oh, Ronaldo, yeah, Juve's my actual family. Real Madrid was not like a family to me. Juve's a family. And then, of course, this is what's going to happen once they lose. It was always in the cards. If Juve ever lost, then Ronaldo would stop losing that happy. What did Jose Mourinho say when he's at Chelsea again? Just the happiest manager or whatever. I don't know. He loses the happiest player or whatever.
Yeah.
So
one of the sad things about this whole thing, though, with Ajax, they're going to be decimated in transfer season this summer. I mean, you got De Jong leaving for Barcelona. Liget is rumored to go to 3, 4, 5 teams are interested in him. Van de Beek, teams are interested in. Ziyech, Bayern and Roma interested in him. Blind, his name's come up. I feel sorry for this club. They have a great run. I hope they make the most of it because it's probably not going to be the same team next year.
yeah, and I don't like putting my name on any guesses, but I think that because of the way that they're away first and home second, I think it's going to be rough on them this next round. And if the Spurs can show their true colors, I think that this is as far as the road goes. That's my guess.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of that, the first legs of the semifinals are April 30th with Tottenham versus Ajax at White Hart Lane. And then May 1st is Barcelona versus Liverpool at Camp Nou. So be on the lookout for those. With the second legs just being a week after that, on the 7th and 8th. And then after those 2 weeks, we'll know who will be going on.
So what's your guys' predictions?
Go ahead, David.
So I already said that I think that Tottenham's going to beat Ajax. I think the Barcelona-Liverpool one is going to be super tricky, and I think it all depends. I think that actually Man City losing the Champions League has decided it for Liverpool, and I think they're going to go all out in the Champions League instead of the EPL. So I think it's going to be a really tough game, a set of games. That's tricky. I think it's a coin flip. I guess I'll give the coin flip to Barcelona, but it's going to be some tight games.
Yeah, I agree with you. Except for I kind of think Ajax has been on a roll. They have I know both teams are Cinderella story, but I just got this feeling these guys are flying high. I'm picking Ajax to take Tottenham, and yeah, you can never count Messi out. And Barcelona's so tough, but like you said, I think Liverpool is going to go all out Champions League. I mean, it's still close, but I think Man City's probably going to wrap up the EPL. So I think I'm going to give the edge to Liverpool, and it's going to be a Liverpool-Ajax final. That's my opinion, but that's going to be close. Raymond?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, both of them. I mean, a prediction. I think you do a coin flip for either of them.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go with Ajax over Tottenham. And then I'm gonna choose Barcelona over Liverpool, so it'll be a Johan Cruyff Champions League final.
There you
Ajax
go.
versus Barcelona.
There you go. Good one. Awesome.
Yeah,
Derek?
I'm gonna have to agree with Ray. I'm root for Ajax to beat Tottenham just because I think they're still going to be missing Harry Kane probably for the rest of the season. That's going to deal a huge blow. I think, Son's on fire right now, but I think he only do so much with the support of the rest of Tottenham players. And then Barcelona, I think Messi just wants it too much this year. And I think that's going to be the main difference in the Barcelona-Liverpool games. And Messi has been the main difference in all the knockout stage games for Barcelona. So
Speaking of Tottenham's injuries, it's not just Harry Kane that's out. They're basically missing their whole midfield.
yes, they
And
are. Yeah.
I think they don't really have a right back right now. They had Davinson Sanchez playing as right back in the game against Man City. Yeah, it's that will make a difference. That I don't know if anyone's planning on coming back by then, but it will make a big difference.
Yep. All right, let's quickly move on. Staying in the European championships. With first the semifinals for the Europa League. We got Arsenal versus Valencia and Frankfurt versus Chelsea. These are exciting games coming up. Frankfurt kind of being the underdogs, and Chelsea trying to get something out of their season, if anything. And so that would be an exciting game to look for. And then same thing with Arsenal, even though they're most likely sitting in a firm Champions League spot this year, they're still trying to get some silverware. But same thing with Valencia, they're right up there with them. So be lookout those games on May 2nd. It'll be exciting to watch.
Speaking of that game, the Eintracht Benfica game, that was actually a very exciting game, a very exciting
Yeah, that
tie.
was great. That was a really exciting game. And this is, if I have to predict, Frankfurt is probably the underdog out of all four of them, and Chelsea should probably move on. But Frankfurt's being a Bundesliga analyst for our group here. Frankfurt is flying high this year. They're sitting in the Champions League spot right now in the Bundesliga, and I wouldn't count them out. I just think Chelsea has too much talent, and they'll be too much for Frankfurt. Then the Arsenal-Valencia game, that's going to be a tough one too. I might give the edge to Valencia, but gosh, I don't know. Arsenal's really good too. They were down for a while. They climbed right back into a Champions League spot. So these are going to be exciting games, just like the Champions League semifinals.
Yeah, I guess quickly comment on that. I think Arsenal, they're pretty satisfied with the job Unai Emery's done in his first year, and sitting in number 4 in the Premier League, still with a lot to go to secure that position, and then in the semifinals of the Europa League. So, but yeah, against Valencia, that's a tough matchup. I think it could go either way, and with I don't know. And then you look at the opposite side where Chelsea, they haven't been satisfied with the job that Sarri's done, even though they're still in the race for that number 4 spot. It's tight, but he's, I guess the expectations were a little higher, but they're still in the running for some silverware in the Europa League. And then Frankfurt, just having an absolute an impressive season, like Charles mentioned, sitting in 4th in the Bundesliga and being able to reach the semifinals in the Europa League. So, yeah, I think those will be fun, competitive games to also watch, along with Champions League semifinal matchups.
Yes, for sure. Quickly into our weekend league roundup. Let's start with Bundesliga and Charles. Just looking at the table, Charles, Bayern's pulling away with it, really.
Well, not really. I mean, they won today, but Dortmund doesn't play till tomorrow. I expect Dortmund to beat Freiburg, so it'll be a 1-point lead again. I think it's going to come down it's going to be tight all the way to the end. Right now I'll probably say Bayern's probably going to squeak it out. But if they have any more slip-ups like they did against Freiburg 2 weeks ago, it could be right in Dortmund's ballpark again. So, yeah, we'll have to see. That both teams have to stay healthy. They both have some injuries. Good news is Ribery is back and Tolisso is back. He was on the sidelines and suited up in today's game, so hopefully we'll be able to see him maybe next week in the game. Tight race for Champions League. Like I said, you got Dortmund, Frankfurt, and Leipzig are in Champions League spots right now. You got Hoffenheim and I believe Leverkusen for the Europa Cup spots. And then on the opposite side, pretty much Hanover and Nuremberg, I think, are relegated. And I don't know if you watched anything today. Stuttgart, I don't know what's with them. They look horrendous in a 6-0 loss to Augsburg. They just look like they were just, I don't know. They have talent, or at least they have names on there that should have talent on their club, but for some reason they can't get it together. And they're in the promotion playoff, and they're kind of fighting with Schalke, who was disappointing again. They got beat 5-2 by Hoffenheim today. Schalke is in totally disarray. They're going to have a new coach next season. They're going to have a new sporting director, and they're going to have to revamp their club also. But I think they're probably going to squeak it out and be safe, where Stuttgart's going to probably sit in that playoff position to fight for their life in the playoffs. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be an exciting run to the end.
Yeah, definitely keep a lookout for the Bundesliga on the Fox Sports channels, and definitely watch that title race with Bayern Munich and Dortmund. Now let's switch to the Spanish League. David, looking like Barcelona's going to clinch the title.
Yeah, so Barcelona's right there. They're just finishing the run out. They'll be fine. The most interesting thing about this, other than the race for the Europa League and the fourth Champions League spot, are what Charles and I was talking about earlier, which is that both Madrid teams are probably going to not overhaul, but make pretty big changes this upcoming transfer window. Real Madrid, for example, has got out the war chest. They'll probably sell Gareth Bale. That's my guess. And they're going to bring in at least 2 or 3 stars, maybe some Galacticos, which is a surprise for Zidane because he hasn't really done that. He's been doing a lot of bringing people up through the ranks. But this is going to greatly affect the rest of the transfer market. And then Atletico Madrid needs to also change how they're going. They're losing some stalwarts like Diego Godin, and then their left back, Felipe Luis, and their right back, Juan Fran, is basically done. Their center midfielder, who's been under them the whole time, that I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But
Lucas Hernandez?
No, the center midfielder. Basically, he's just like all the classic. What's their coach's name? How am I losing all this?
Simeone.
All the classic like Diego Simeone like players. They're kind of like saying like, hey, this is our last season. So Atletico is going to be doing a big overhaul as well. They have a lot of young, great prospects, but they need to figure out some basic things and maybe a mentality, because it's going to be a different mentality. So I'm sorry that it took so long to say it. Basically, the season's wrapping up. Just be ready for a crazy, crazy transfer window. Last season was kind of chill, but this one's going to be really, really nuts.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, especially with the revamping of some teams in the Premier League as well. I think Tottenham, especially with their Champions League run, they're going to try to get some other top name players. Maybe bring Gareth Bale back to Tottenham to boost their chances even more of trying their luck at the Champions League next year. But yeah, with the Premier League, Man City, Liverpool are still neck and neck at it. With Man City with the 1-point lead. and the goal differential advantage. Tottenham, they just lost their game to Man City today, so they dropped 3 points. And Arsenal hasn't played yet, so it looks like Arsenal, if they don't blow up Crystal Palace, it looks like Arsenal will go up to 69 points and get in that third slot. And then it's really up to Chelsea and Man U to see who really wants that fourth Champions League spot. Because I can see Tottenham winning out their games, but then in a couple weeks Chelsea and Man U face each other, so that will be the real decider of who actually takes Europa League and that fourth Champions League spot. Then moving on to relegation, Ray.
Yeah, and there's pretty much, you got Cardiff City sitting in 18th with 31, and then Brighton and Hove Albion, they're 3 points ahead of them at 34. Southampton's 5 points up on Cardiff with 3 games remaining. So unless Cardiff gets maximum points from their last 3 matches and Southampton drops 2 of their last 3, that would be the only chance for Cardiff or for Southampton to go down.
And speaking of Cardiff is playing Liverpool tomorrow, and then
yes, correct.
And then Man U on the final day of the season.
Yeah, so they got a tall mountain to climb if they're going to stay up. So Fulham and Huddersfield are already determined to be relegated. So not a whole lot of drama there. There's only Brighton and Hove Albion is really the only other team that could possibly go down if Cardiff pulls off some upsets. But yeah, that's the relegation story in the EPL.
Yeah, quickly moving out through Europe. Today, Juve clinched their 8th Serie A title, 8th straight Serie A title. So that's a really big accomplishment for them. And then you got Napoli and Inter sitting pretty comfortably in the Champions League spot. But then you got AC Milan and Roma fighting for that 4th Champions League spot. So look out for those games on ESPN Plus to see who will eventually get that 4th Champions League spot for Serie A. Just quickly breezing through to to the championship. Yesterday there was some crazy games in the championship. Bouncing to there. With some teams getting relegated. Ipswich Town got relegated officially. Bolton is right on the edge. I don't know if anybody watched any highlights from the Norwich City and Sheffield Wednesday game, but that was a big result to decide that the promotion and the second spot for the championship. Leeds is right behind Sheffield United for that number 2 official spot. West Brom sitting in 4th. Aston Villa 5th. Middlesbrough 6th. And Bristol City right behind Middlesbrough, 1 point off that promotion playoff. So also look out on ESPN Plus for those games. And then catch those games. Let's go to our, I'm going to call this our crazy transfer minute. Of course, there's still talks of Aiden Hazard and Zidane wanting him. My crazy talk, or my my crazy minute transfer talk, whatever you want to call it, is I think it's a big possibility that Chelsea's going to try to do a transfer swap for Gareth Bale and Aiden Hazard. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's my crazy transfer talk for today. Yeah, let's move on to final impressions, thoughts. Starting with David.
First of all, this is one of the best weeks of soccer that I've had since the World Cup. Just absolutely insanity everywhere. The 3 games that Tottenham and Man City have played all in a row have just been insane. Ajax has been great to watch. So, as a neutral, I've just been enjoying a lot of this stuff. My final thoughts are that this is going to be some make or break time for the EPL. So I'm really excited to watch those games go down. And then I'm looking forward to the rest of the Champions League because kind of like Charles was saying, some of these games are just, what's the right way to say it? I think Ray was saying it too, that they're momentous. They're giant occasions for these teams that just haven't been there in forever, like Ajax or Tottenham, which have never gotten this far. So I wish them the best just because this is a good occasion. And then, of course, if Messi takes it all the way or something like that, or Liverpool, reclaim their place on top of the hill, the European hill. There's so many good stories. So what excitement. That's all I got to say.
Cool. Yeah. I'm looking forward to Champions League and the Europa Cup coming up. I think it's going to be a great last few weeks of all the leagues also. Most of them have been wrapped up, but the Bundesliga and the EPL have not been wrapped up yet, so those are going to be awesome leagues to watch and coming down to the wire. There's a few transfers and things I want to talk about real quick. Today it was announced Paul Mitchell from RB Leipzig. He's the assistant coach. Is moving to Salzburg to take over the coaching position in Salzburg, according to Red Bull, because Nagelsmann obviously is coming in to take over the head coaching position for RB Leipzig from Hoffenheim. And also Luka Jovic, Frankfurt re-signed him. However, there's a little twist to this. Barcelona is still interested in him, and I think that could be the reason why Frankfurt maybe signed him to get money out of him, because they're thinking he's worth maybe about 50 mil. So just because Frankfurt re-signed him doesn't mean he still can't not go to Barcelona. We'll have to wait and see about that. And then
I think Real Madrid want him too. So there's a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then little higher note from Bayern Munich. It was about a week ago or so now, but Oliver Kahn was named to replace Karl-Heinz Rummenigge as CEO of the organization. And he's, if you guys know, he's a former goalkeeper for Bayern Munich. And Bayern loves bringing old players back, and they have a list. They've even mentioned this last week. They want to bring Bastian Schweinsteiger back in some kind of a capacity. They even mentioned they want to retain Arjen Robben and Frank Ribery in some kind of a capacity. Both of them retire at the end of the season, and they both kind of indicated they're probably going to go play somewhere else for a year or two, but they also indicated they do want to come back to Bayern Munich in some kind of a capacity, whether it's on a coaching staff or sporting director or something in management. But so yeah, that's the news from the Bundesliga. So we'll have to see what happens in the next few weeks. But this is going to be exciting. I'm really interested in the Cinderella story of Ajax and Tottenham, and we'll see how that goes.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is one of the most exciting times for time of the year for soccer. We got the semifinals, Europa League and Champions League with incredible stories. We got battles in all the domestic leagues for positions in the Champions League and in Europe competition. We got 4 teams fighting for 2 spots in the Champions League and the EPL. And I guess big picture, commenting on what we were talking about, how possibly crazy the transfer silly season could come up this summer. We got 4 EPL teams in the final 8 in both European competitions, so the EPL is really flexing on its muscles on the amount they're able to spend on players, and so I think there'll be a possible revamp of mentality from a lot of other clubs around the world, particularly bigger clubs, in spending to obtain talent to compete with that. And so, yeah, lots of drama, lots of stories, and can't wait to see it all unravel.
All right.
Are you ready?
Thanks for joining us on
Are you ready?
Football Around the Clock.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Are you
Our
ready?
guests
Are you ready?
here,
Are you
David,
ready to forget
Charles,
your family
Ray,
and
for
your
joining
job?
us.
Work out. Oh, whoa.
Look out for all our posts on Facebook. And we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
All right, take care.
Around the clock. Oh, oh.